The 12 days of Claudemas is the idea of can we build 12 applications or tools in 12 days using nothing but Claude code. In this video, we are up to day number 2, which is we're working on the brain. Now in day number 1, we worked on the foundation called FlyGen Harness. And what FlyGen is an application harness in which we can call different generative AI tools for images or videos or audio files. But today, as we move into the brain, what we're looking to do is build our primary orchestrator or main agent. And we'll do that using Claude Agent SDK. Anyway, I'm Happy Dave. Let's get into it. Let's head over to the FlyGen application that we were working on yesterday. And the idea was to get this harness up and running. It's a socket IO system, meaning that we have a server that's talking live to the client, and changes that we can do on the file system can be reflected live in the client. Day 1 was really just setting up this little application. Now I'm in the middle of making a minor change right now. So at the moment, we've got settings coming through here from a configuration file. And what we should be able to do is just type in some information into a setting and hit save. And the next thing I want to do is just deal with these little icons. Don't really like them, but rather than removing them from the code, I'm thinking it might be useful to remove them from the configuration. And so while I've been talking, I've just been letting a bit of code fly around over here to see whether it's going to work. So we'll come back. Now, after a little bit of pain, and you can tell that because I'm down to 10% context, it figured out that there was just a configuration in the tailwind. And I had told it a couple of times to go looking for that, but finally got there. And so we've got some changes to the system. Notice now that we've got a nicer looking dialog box. If we click this little button, those icons up on the left will disappear, which is what I wanted. Then we can save it into the configuration. We can move on to the brain, which is what we would like to alter today. What I'm thinking is I want to get rid of these panels here and have some sort of text dialog box that if we typed into it, would work with my Claude Agent SDK, which we're going to have to figure out how to install into the server system, and use my Max account to just return some sort of a result. We'll get started by heading over to Claude Code, and we'll run it with the dangerously skip permissions, and then we'll just use the voice agent and we'll put in a prompt. I'd like to work with the Claude Agent SDK. I believe I've got planning documents for it. I also think those planning documents point to one of the applications or videos that I've done in the past. Can you go and identify the information and give me a little bit of a rundown or a report on what we've got? So we'll just let that come through and we'll press enter. So you can see that what it's doing is using the read tool and the search tool just to look through the file system. It's identified the 07 BMAD Claude SDK. And what that's doing is bringing up access to this video. So here we are at story 2.1. Of installing the Agent SDK, and this is at the hour and 16 minute in a video I did on using BMAD to build this application. And we can go down and we can see that there's a chapter bookmark that you can get to go and watch that video. And that would give you in-depth if you're interested. But otherwise, what we're looking at is it's come up with some sort of a report for us. We've got a planning document going on here. We've also got access to where I recorded that video and where I put the code base. If you're wondering how it found that, it didn't just search the file system. Sometimes it'll use some skills that I've got on the computer, which are designed to either use my digital access management tool or to use my jump system. And jump system is how I get to different folders on my computer. It's also found other curated documentation I've got in my own second brain here for the Agent SDK, plus the original Claude Agent SDK in TypeScript is down on my computer in third-party JavaScript products. So I think what we'll do is I'm just going to go into the product owner. And at the moment, I've just hit escape on that because it went into a sub-agent, and I've got a little bit of a problem with my plugins and the way they're installed in Claude Code. So I think what we'll do is just write in a little prompt and we'll say, can you create a new requirements document that will get us started with the Claude Agent SDK running on the server side of our application? It should also have some sort of mechanism to authenticate using the Claude Agent SDK, or in this case, Claude Code. And then once you've done that, we need to write up a requirements document For this, we're not doing the development. We're just writing up the requirements document. So we can see the background agent kicked in. So product owner, create a requirements document, PRD for integrating Claude Agent SDK. It's reading a bunch of files. It's creating a bunch of stuff as it goes. It's going to make sure it updates the backlog to pending, and it also knows that it's only writing the requirements. So it's now finished. We've got the document, which will be our product requirement document for this feature. Backlog is updated, and we've got the areas that it's going to work on. What we'll do is we'll start a new Claude agent, and once that's in place, we'll go into the developer. As he gets started, he loads the context in, so he's got the backlog and automatically worked out that it can start with FR3. We'll just press the tab and press enter to kick that off. And this idea of using two Claude windows at the same time is just so that I don't poison any of the context. So the context on the left is only being kept for writing requirements, updating the change log or the backlog, and the conversation on the right is only for development. And once I've done a little bit of development, I'll probably close it down and start up a clean conversation each time as well. One of the things that we can look at when we're doing this is if we go into Claude Code again and start it, there's a little option you can run called context. And what that will tell you is just how much context you're using in the window at the moment. And it's this little graph near the top that you want to be going and looking at. And what that's showing us is that our free space is 130,000 tokens, or 65% of the context when it first starts. And it's something that you want to keep an eye on from time to time, such as how big are the system tools each time you start a new window. So it looks like we've installed the SDK. We've got some shared types set up for the socket IO event. So that's the communication between the server and the client. Where you can see it's just finished creating the agent code over on the server. So now we're wiring up the socket IO to communicate with the front end. Now it's kicking in and doing some sort of testing on the server. And what we can do is go down to those background tasks and see what it's running. It's doing an npm run dev at the moment, and it feels like it's finished everything. I don't know that it works. We've probably got a little bit of debug ahead of us. So I wasn't recording when I did this bit, but let's just have a look at what I did. I asked a question of Claude auth login, how do we do it? One of the things it came up with originally was to use the Anthropic key. That's not the way we want to do it, because we don't want to use API credits. What we want to do is use our max plan. Now, there's also this note here from the documentation about using your Claude auth login. What we're trying to do, my ability to use my Claude Max account, is really only something I can use locally. It's not designed for hosting an application and allowing other people to use their Claude Max accounts. But when you're building your own little application like we're doing here, we can do it. But we don't need to run this command right now, because we've already done it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in Claude Code. And what that does is it installs here in this Claude directory your authentication credentials. And that left me a little bit confused on how the Agent SDK gets working. I did this quite a while ago. And so what I decided to do was use my FlyHub skill. And what that's doing is having a conversation with this application that's right here. And this particular application where we're recording the videos also has the video that I did, B64 BMAD Claude SDK. And one of the things going on in that particular video is that we have access to all the transcripts. So the transcripts, which go for about 2 hours, are all available. That's here. It tells us how to use this Claude Agent SDK. I know it's around the 1 minute and 16 mark, or as we said earlier, it's chapter 20. Claude Agent SDK. So the answer's in here. But the good thing is I don't have to read that. What I can is let the FlyHub system talk to that web server. So it's talking to the web server. It's looking for B64. And from that, it found the transcript and found the answer. And from that, it's apparently gone and created a little file that we might be able to test. So let's give that a whirl. So I've got my FlyGen folder open. We're just going to copy that line here and we'll paste it down. So we're CDing into the server, and then we're running this test SDK, and it looks like it's giving us some information. And so that little tool brought down all this data, which means that we can communicate using our Max account. And I just did a check to see whether any of that data was sensitive. So it's all publicly available data. So what I think we'll do is we'll get the developer to communicate with the product owner. At the moment, I think we've got a test harness working. We've probably got the server application working with the agent SDK, but we don't have a front end. We don't know how we're going to communicate with it yet. So we'll come back down to this window and we'll just put in a little prompt and we'll say, can you hand over some information to the product owner? Firstly, let them know what you've worked on, but also let them know that we need to come up with a plan of action on the front end. Maybe we need some sort of mock user interface, a couple of versions that we can potentially iterate on and come up with a nice front end that can communicate with this agent SDK. And can you give it any other information that you think is relevant so that we can have success with this project? So I'm just going to put that prompt in right there. We'll see what it comes up with. So whatever the answer is here, we're going to transfer it back over to our product owner conversation and either update the current functional requirement or create another one. So we've got this pretty long piece of information. It's a handover. Once we go all the way down, it's also got some relevant context for success. And we'll just come to the PO and just paste it in verbatim, see what it does with that. So one of the things we can see here, too long didn't read, is that the back end is done and tested. Needs the PO to spec out the front-end chat UI options. Now that's kicked off as a sub-agent. That's probably a good thing. If you're wondering about that term TLDR, the too long didn't read, you might want to come out and check my other YouTube channel. It's AI TLDR. And this channel is all about faceless YouTube automation. So the sort of stuff we do here is create graphics, create animations, avatars, all that sort of stuff. And the whole reason for the FlyGen application that we are trying to build over here is to build these different tools that will help us be more productive with this particular YouTube channel. So enough of the self-promotion. Let's go and have a look at what it's doing right here. It's still writing the requirements document. One of the things to notice here, so what it's done is taken the information and said that feature request number 3 is complete, and it's planning for feature request number 4, which is a chat interface or the chat user experience. And the good thing is it's doing a lot of the update on the Claude SDK integration document. So we haven't changed our source of truth document. I was able to press Control O, which expanded everything. And the good thing is it's also got a couple of ideas on what the user interface could be. That's probably going to show up at the end anyway, but we can look at it ahead of time. So the first one, the minimal, is just a chat where Claude says something, the human says something, Claude says something, and any tools that are being used, such as reading or writing from the file system, are available. I don't really get this option B. I don't like that, the way it's working. And option C looks fairly fancy, but unless we're using a fancy user interface like the Vercel Agent SDK, I don't want to get into that. So I think we're going to go with option A anyway. We press Control O and we come back to the main conversation. And here we get a summary of everything that's working. So we've got a couple of documents being updated for us. We've got the new PRD document, which is FR04, front-end chat interface. And we've got our 3 options. Its recommendation is that we start with option A. So I reckon we can just come back over here. I'm just going to type progress. What that should do is reload this context with the information we just read from the left. And the way that does that is it's reading from either the backlog or from the changelog file. And we can see that going on. It also has access to brainstorming notes. So sometimes when I'm just thinking of something and I want it in the application, I'll use the brainstorming rather than the backlog or the changelog. And I've just put in /dev. That should bring in the developer agent. And I said, can you implement FR4? And it's just occurred to me that where we're going to put it, which is day 2, the brain, hopefully it's going to show up here, but we haven't stated where it should show up. Hopefully it'll just work that out. So it's getting into the coding now. It's got a plan of action that it's going to work through. So firstly, it's going to create a use socket hook. That should be on the React side of things. By the way, when I said that, that's an educated guess because I don't really know how to use React, which is what I love about Claude Code and the Opus 4.5 model is that you don't have to be a developer. You really just have to understand the way software flows. Now, if you are a developer, of course, it's a lot easier because you can make more informed decisions as you go. But we're just seeing there that the chat panel is being created, and being able to read code is important because this here is a bit of a problem. What it's doing is saying day 2 is Kybernesis. Now, that used to be day 2, but Kybernesis is a memory system that we want to do on day 3. So I might need to rename it along the way. Now, I haven't used Kybernesis yet, but what it is over here, we can see it. And it's fairly new. If you come to this, it's Kybernesis.ai. There is a wait list to join it. I've been given early access, so I'm trying to test it out. As a friend of mine has this. And what it is essentially a memory system. So we have a memory graph. It's got, I won't say it's got RAG because it's got a more intelligent sort of self-editing system. There is RAG, of course, going on there. There's also an agent system. Now, we're only using it for the memory part, but none of that happens until tomorrow anyway. I wasn't going to do it today because I don't know how to use it yet. And that creates a little bit of fear when you're trying to build these sort of things because you don't know whether it's going to take 1 hour or 10 hours. But the good thing is when we're using Claude Code, it's just so powerful that we can usually muddle through most sorts of problems that we run into. And look at that, it's just finished. And I just noticed a screen change. So we've got something going on. Don't know if it works. I'm just going to say hello. And you can't see that because it's behind my head. We'll just say, can you do a story about the quick brown fox jumping over the lazy dog? And I'm just letting the voice agent type that in. And it's going up into the top area. It says sending down in the bottom right-hand corner. Look at that. And that feels okay. You know, we might be done for the night. So let's see what we've got here. Front-end chat is complete, implemented option A. I'm sure we could come back and do option B or C later on. We've got use socket. We've got a chat panel. Day 2 Kybernesis wrapper. That's the only thing I want to change. I want to say, one of the things that we did was we renamed day 2, which was Kybernesis, to the Claude Agent SDK. And now Kybernesis is for day 3. So what I wouldn't mind you doing is modifying that class name or file name. So we'll let that kick in and see whether it at least changes it. Otherwise, we'll have confusion a bit later on in the system. And we want to try and knock any issues that we see ahead of time on the head. Otherwise, you just create more pain for yourself. So you might be able to see over there that it's writing a little bit of code. You might be wondering a little bit about my setup. So what I've got is a 30-inch monitor in front of me, but over here on the right, I've got a 27-inch monitor that's actual in vertical alignment. And with that being the case, what I can do is have multiple terminals. So what we're seeing is another set of terminals down below the ones that we were looking at up here. And I share that because when you're writing code, having access to these different terminals in different orientations. So I like to have the terminals vertical. I like to have VS Code on the horizontal. So if we press VS Code right there, we can see the information that's currently in VS Code. As a developer, in the past, we would have looked at this information all the time, but we haven't looked at it once in this entire project today. But that gets me thinking that we could do. So where did it put that component? So day 1 harness, day 2 agent SDK has been renamed. But let's see what's going on over here. That all looks finished. What I want to do is give this as a handover conversation back to the product owner. So we'll just say, can you create a handover document for the product owner? Just showing everything that you've completed. While you do that, is there anything that we missed or anything that the product owner needs to be aware of? So we'll just let that prompt kick in. We'll press enter. So we have our handover to the product owner going on here. We can see that it's got information about FR3 and FR4. We've got areas of code, what's been changed, stuff like that. We've also got where that little test harness is that we created earlier. We can talk about how to run the application. So it's currently running on port 5400 on my computer. So I'm just going to grab all the information to the bottom and we'll pop in over here and paste it in. And so we're currently letting the product owner know that there's updated documentation coming in from the developer. I think we'll finish it there. I've got the conversation working. It needs some formatting of some form. But at the moment, we've done the FlyGen harness. That was yesterday. Today, we've worked on the primary brain, which is Claude Agent SDK. Tomorrow, we'll work on the second brain, which will hopefully be with Kybernesis if we can get it working. And then from a serious continuity point of view, we're going to get into a lot of the image generation once we've got these foundational areas done. Anyway, I'm Abby Dave. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.